Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
Todd never sugarcoats it. Does he tell it straight? You bet. Does he deliver with a sense of humor? Always.
I always start my Sunday mornings off listening to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. It has tons of information, and he has such a great sense of humor.
My friends and I always tune in to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Hold on tight. Don't let go. It's time for the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting once again, folks. You know what's coming in the middle of the mitten, broadcasting and podcasting, that is, from the mothership in a beautiful green nutrient field, opening up with Damn Yankees, Come Again, Uncle Ted. Love you, Uncle Ted Nugent. If you happen to listen to the show, we are waiting for you to come on. Craig Russell, the muscle, welcome back to the mothership.
Oh, Todd, I'm going to tell you, we've had a lot of rain in the last month or so. It's been pretty wet and kind of fall-like. Nothing like that hurricane down in the Carolinas. That thing is crazy, the damage and the destruction. I hope everyone is safe who's listening on podcast in that part of the world. Hope everyone is safe. And hopefully you're having do you have a good week this week, Todd? You have a good week?
Craig, I'm doing much better this week. And I also want to give my thoughts and prayers out to all the families and individuals and first responders and all the law enforcement officials and Coast Guard and the military, everyone out there who are helping with the aftermath of Hurricane Florence. And the destruction is just, there's always so much destruction with those hurricanes, and they tell people to get out, and some people decide to stay. But definitely our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody, and we hope everybody's safe out there. Absolutely. I'm doing much better. Yesterday, I was actually down with Big Hair, Big Daddy, Captain Tommy, the Shafe. We were shredding the nard down at Potawatomi. I love saying Potawatomi. We were riding from Potawatomi all the way over to DTE Energy Trail and back. Tree Fort Bikes. They're downstate in the Ann Arbor area. Big shout out to Tree Fort Bikes and all the volunteers of the Potawatomi Trail community for putting on a great event out there. So, yeah, it was a great week, Craig. Great week. How about you? How's your week?
Fantastic. I'm glad you're feeling better. I was a little concerned about you. I'm glad you've been able to get back on the bike and do some riding after your injury and everything. It's been a big week. This week was also not only the hurricane hit, but also was the anniversary of 9/11, which happened 17 years ago. Do you remember what you were doing on 9/11 when that happened?
We will never forget 9/11, all the lives that were lost, first responders, firefighters, the military, again, President Bush. I'll never forget. I'm a fan of President Bush. I recall him coming out to the scene afterwards. But, yeah, I was actually practicing law in Metro Detroit. I was on Haggerty Road heading south over the railroad tracks on my way to 35th District Court. And when the first plane hit, I was crossing that railroad track right there on Haggerty. I think it was just south of 5 Mile Road when the first plane hit. And I thought it was just like one of those small little twin-engine planes. When I got to the courthouse and I went up to see Judge McDonald, he invited me into his chambers. He's now retired, and my buddy Jimmy Plakis took his place. So big shout out to Judge Jimmy Plakis down there in the 35th District Court. I ended up watching a coverage for the next 2 hours with Judge McDonald after I took care of my case. I mean, you'll never get over that. I mean, it's just, and you never should forget also. How about you? Where were you?
I was living in Gaylord at the time. I was working at the old 106.7 The Peak, and I wasn't on the air. It was just in the morning, and I just happened to be on the Today Show. I was sitting on the computer. I think I was dialing up with like Prodigy or AOL or something like that, if you remember those days. And I was on the computer and happened to just look over and see them reporting on what was going on and was glued. And that is a day I'll never forget, having to go in and actually be on the air that day and try to explain to people and try and play top 40 music and try and be upbeat when all the things that were happening in our country. I saw a really powerful thing on Facebook. Somebody says, I will never forget 9/11, but I really will never forget 9/12, because that was the day we all came together as Americans. That's the day that all the stores ran out of flags because we all were patriotic and we were Americans and we were standing by each other. And the aftermath of 9/11 made us a stronger country. And sometimes it feels like today that strength has been divided and we're not nearly as cohesive as a country unit as we were right after the attacks of 9/11. And I wish we could get back to some of that patriotism and some of that good feeling toward all Americans, not because no matter what your color was or what you believed in or what political party you were part of, everybody was Americans and we all came together. And I really wish we could get back to that sometimes.
I agree with you 100% on that, Craig. I don't drink the Kool-Aid. I feel we are that country. We are still a patriotic country. We are a country of one people. And again, I don't buy the Kool-Aid. I don't pay attention to, what's on cable or what's in the print. I'm not even on Facebook. I don't pay attention to what people say or don't say. I do feel we are one people. We are one country. We are a strong country. We're a very patriotic country. We love our military. We love each other. Obviously, not everybody gets along. Not everybody likes each other. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, we're all Americans. We're not Democrats. We're not independents. We're not Republicans. What are we, Craig?
We're Americans.
Americans, absolutely. And we love our flag. Absolutely. Hey, Craig, we have a huge show.
Yeah.
We are a law show, by the way. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, what took you so long?
Yeah, no kidding.
What took you so long? We opened up with...
Come on.
Yeah, come on. We opened up with Damn Yankees, Come Again, Uncle Ted. We love Uncle Ted. A big shout out to Jeremy from Kalkaska, Michigan. We were going to open up with some Godsmack, but I ended up, tuning into some Damn Yankees on the way to the mothership, turning and burning it, and brought back some great memories from back in the day. So we had to open up with Damn Yankees. We'll hook it up with Jeremy from Kalkaska, some Godsmack. Also, Craig, one of my good buddies, Deputy Drury from the Clear County Sheriff's Department, just retired. Great man, great guy. So big shout out to Deputy Drury, who retired last week from the court, from the county, and he's got some great coworkers there. Big shout out to all the deputy sheriffs and the sheriff of Clear County in the middle of the Mitten there in Michigan. And I wish him and his family all the best, good health.
That's awesome. So what do we got coming up on the show, Todd?
Oh, my goodness. We got so much to talk about. We have a question. This show is a podcast, and we're in all 50 states and all over the world. But we are in the state of Michigan, and this is a question from an individual in the state of Michigan. Can I hold a CPL license and a medical marijuana facilities license at the same time? So the question is, can I hold carrying a concealed pistol license, which we're big Second Amendment guys. We love the Second Amendment, and a medical marijuana facilities license? We're going to be answering that question in the show. We have another question that's very Michigan specific. Sorry, folks. It's a capitalization requirement, and this individual wants us to just discuss briefly what are the total amounts of capitalization based on the type of marijuana facility that the individual is looking to operate within the state of Michigan. So we'll give a brief rundown once again of what the capitalization requirements are per dollar amount for particular classes of different type of licenses. We have a story from Alberta, Canada, Craig Russell from The Hustle. And the story is the University of Alberta is laying out new cannabis rules, including designated consumption areas. And this is a big deal. Canada is the second country in the world to legalize cannabis across the board. And a big shout out to our friends to the north, because the state of Michigan does border the great country of Canada. So we're going to be talking about that as well, and we have much more to get to, Craig. How about you? What do you got?
Well, we also have some celebrity cannabis news. I will give you a small hint we're going to take a trip to Margaritaville.
Oh, yeah, I know all about that. Absolutely.
But we'll tell you about that.
And we have some other laws to discuss that are non-cannabis related.
Wow.
But we have a huge show, Craig, and that's all there is to it.
We got to take a break, but we'll be back on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
And we'll come back strong with who, Craig?
Damn Yankees and Uncle Ted.
Damn well believe it. We'll be right back.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting across this beautiful country of ours, the United States of Weed, podcasting on Libsyn, SoundCloud, Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Android app. If you're just tuning into the show for the first time and you miss earlier episodes, catch us on podcast. Or listen live, Craig, on 98.5 WUPS.
And Rock 105 and Rock 95.5. We just rock. Cartman, Smitty.
Cartman, Smitty, we just rock. That's right. Coming back strong with Damn Yankees. Come again, Uncle Ted. Craig, question from a listener.
Okay, Todd.
Can I hold a CPL in the state of Michigan, a CPL license, carrying a concealed pistol license, and a medical marijuana facilities license? So if I'm a CPL license holder, can I hold a medical marijuana facilities license? What do you think the answer is to that?
I've got to be leaning toward no, knowing the restrictions of holding one of those medicinal marijuana licenses. I've got to believe it's no.
I did some research. I reviewed the entire Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act over and over, and there are literally no restrictions in the MMFLA that would prevent a CPL holder from obtaining a medical marijuana facilities license. I double-checked with Michigan's Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, a.k.a. LARA, capital L-A-R-A, and they agreed with me that there are no restrictions. Now, but there's another issue involved here. The issue is, listen to the question, can I hold a concealed pistol license and additionally a medical marijuana facilities license at the same time? The question was not, if I'm a CPL holder, can I physically be in and around a marijuana facilities in addition to having a CPL? Do you follow what I'm saying? And the answer to that is no. If you are in a state, I'll talk about the state of Michigan. If you are a CPL holder and you also hold a facilities license, I would not be carrying anywhere on that facility's grounds, anywhere near it or around it, because the federal government says that cannabis is still a Schedule I drug. That's where the issue lies, Craig, right there. There's nothing in the act preventing you from being a CPL holder and a facilities licensing holder of one of these covenant licenses, but the issue is when you're actually physically working in and around cannabis in the state of Michigan, if you're carrying or possessing a firearm, then you're going to be in violation of federal law at that time. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and I have a couple of questions for that. First place, when I heard the question, I basically assumed that the person who was applying for the medicinal marijuana license was already a CPL holder. Is it possible that if you are a CPL holder and you then applied for a license, would that be used against you in being denied getting a license? A.
No, I would say no, it's not going to deny you. Again, folks who are just tuning in, the question is, and this may apply to the state in which you're living in.
Yeah.
We used to call it carrying a concealed weapon. and a CPL. We call it a CPL. There's no reason you cannot possess a CPL license and also be part of a facilities license. The question isn't, if I'm a CPL holder, can I obtain a medical marijuana card or become a medical marijuana caregiver? This is talking about a business license, Craig, through the state. It's not asking if I possess a legal right to possess a firearm, can I also qualify to be around marijuana and cannabis, same thing, which is considered illegal by the federal government. This is a different issue here. Although you could argue it's one and the same, because if I'm obtaining a marijuana facilities license, it may imply that you're going to be around the product. And if you are around the product, I would not be carrying at that time. I would leave it in a vehicle or a safe place out of, someone else's reach.
I would say locked up in a gun safe where no one can get to it. You leave it in a car. There's been a lot of burglaries lately, especially around the Detroit area, of people breaking into cars and finding guns that are not locked up properly. You should always have your firearm or your pistol locked up properly when you're not using it.
As Second Amendment advocates that we are here on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, and again, these are the views and opinions of myself, not the owners of the station, not the advertisers, just yours truly, Todd L. Levitt. As a Second Amendment guy, I get sick and tired of laws that are passed in relation to cannabis, whereby, your constitutional right under the Constitution to possess something is inhibited due to the federal law of Schedule 1, keeping marijuana and hemp within that schedule. It needs to be removed, and the federal government needs to get their act together and do what's right for the people, because it's the people. The laws belong to the people. The Constitution belongs to the people. It does not belong to the government or the courts or the system, Craig. And we've talked about that week in and week out.
If you ever have any questions about legal issues, not only about drunk driving and driver's license restoration, which is your forte, but also about anything to do with marijuana, you can always call Todd, 989-772-6000. If Todd can't help you directly, he works with some of the best cannabis lawyers in the country, some of the best lawyers in the state as well, and he can certainly put you in touch with the right people to help you out no matter what your situation. If you feel like you've been wrongly persecuted for having a medical marijuana card or anything to involve a medical marijuana business, or eventually when it becomes recreational marijuana business, Todd is the man to help you out. 772-6000 or centralmichiganlawyer.com to find out more. Hey, we've got to take a break on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, but when we come back, we've got another question from a listener. Is that correct? Is that what I remember you saying?
Craig, we do have some more questions from a listener we're going to get to right after the break here on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting. Craig Russell. How you doing, Craig? How's your day going?
It's been pretty good here. A little early at the mothership. I got a full day of football waiting for me. This is my favorite time of year. Spending most of my Sundays watching some NFL football. Of course, the Lions didn't look so hot last week on Monday night. We'll see how they do again today. But neither did my Bears look so hot on Sunday night last week either. Ugh. but I don't want to talk about it. What about you? What you got big plans for the day?
I'm just taking it easy. Probably do a little bit of shredding just to keep the legs loose. Got a couple races coming up. Other than that,
sounds like a good idea.
Chillaxing, brother. Just chillaxing, my man. We were talking earlier in the show about, we had a question regarding, can you be a CPL holder and still obtain a marijuana facilities license from the state of Michigan? And the answer is yes. I read through the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, saw nothing that would prevent you from holding both licenses. I checked with Lara, the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. They agreed. There was nothing preventing an individual who's a concealed pistol license holder to obtain a facilities license or be a part of one. That comes to another question. An individual had a question in regards to the capitalization requirements to obtain a license, proposed marijuana facilities license. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. There's, people talk, you read things online, so I want to talk about that for a moment, Craig. And the rules are very clear. The Michigan medical marijuana regulatory emergency rules are very clear. And Rule 11 speaks specifically to capitalization requirements. And if you're an applicant, you must disclose the sources and total amount of capitalization to operate and maintain a proposed marijuana facility. And the total amounts, Craig, of capitalization are based on the type of facility specified in the application, the type of license that you're trying to obtain. For instance, let's talk about a Class A license. If you're an individual or a corporation out there, you're looking to obtain in the state of Michigan a Class A grower's license, 500 plant maximum, you have to show capitalization of $150,000, Craig. Class B grower's license, that's 1,000 plant. And by the way, the state is allowing and communities are allowing stacking of these licenses. So if you're an individual or corporation, there's nothing that will prevent you from getting approval for multiple Class A licenses, Class B, or a combination of thereof. So a Class B license, 1,000 plants, $300,000, correct? $300,000. I'm going to say that if you want 2 Class B licenses, you're going to have to show a capitalization of $600,000. If you just want a Class A and a Class B, then, Class A, $150,000, Class B, $300,000. Let's say you want a Class A and a Class B, and you're going to have to show capitalization of $450,000. Class C, Craig, 1,500 plant grower's license, $500,000 capitalization requirement. So you can see that how this is set up, and the good men and women out there who have fought the good fight for years and decades to pass recreational cannabisation, legalization, and a federal prohibition, quite a number of them, if not most of them, are being just pushed right out from the state of Michigan due to these huge amount of capitalization requirements.
Now, but that doesn't have anything to do with, remember, we've talked about the micro grow. When it becomes recreational, it's possible that you'll be allowed to grow so many of your own plants at a time. And that would not have anything to do with any of this, correct?
No, we'll get to the micro grow, the 150 plant micro grow, which is going to be on the ballot here in the state of Michigan in November. But let me just move on for a second. If you want to obtain a processor's license in the state of Michigan, what do you think the capitalization requirement is, Craig?
$750,000.
$300,000.
Oh, okay.
How about a provisioning center, aka dispensary? Same thing, $300,000. If you want to obtain a secure transportation license in the state of Michigan, $200,000. Safety compliance facility, $200,000. Now, here's the question. In the very beginning, it was thought that you had to possess that type of cash, but that's not correct. Not less than 25% it must be and is in liquid asset form to cover the initial expense of operating and maintaining the proposed marijuana facilities, Craig, as specified in your applications. But in addition to the cash, it can include, CDs, 401ks, stock and bonds, and marijuana inventory that meet, certain conditions. So it doesn't have to be all cash. But again, it's clear that at least in our state, the great state of Michigan, pure Michigan, baby, we love Michigan, the requirements to get into the game, put a lot of people on the sidelines that have fought the good fight for decades. Now, our show is heard in all 50 states, so I would ask the listeners out there, look up your state, what the capitalization requirements are, send us an email to the show, toddlevittLawShow@gmail.com, toddlevittLawShow@gmail.com, and we'll talk about your capitalization requirements on the next show, Craig. But your question was in regards to the new 150 plant micro grow that's going to be on the ballot in Michigan in November, and that would entail, if you apply for a separate micro grow license, is there a capitalization requirement? We don't have the rules on that yet. I haven't read the language on that yet. I'm going to assume there is a capitalization requirement, but those micro grows must be grown and sold on the same property at the same place. So you can't grow it in one place and sell it in another location. It has to be within the same physical, real property location, Craig Russell.
So am I not understanding that correctly, Todd? I thought the micro grow was mostly for personal use only. You grow it on your own property, you grow it for yourself, and you're not making it to sell to anybody else. You're not doing it to process it.
No, you're incorrect. No, the micro grow will be for business purposes only.
Oh.
Because again, if you look back, to the state of Michigan and the caregivers, if you're a caregiver and you're your own patient, you can possess up to 72 plants, 2.5 ounces, per patient, which includes yourself. In November, when it goes recreational, if you're a card holder or a caregiver, you're still going to be able to be a card holder and a caregiver for your patients. I mean, there's some talk over time, how that's going to change over the years, but we can't foresee that right now. We could think about it. We could talk about it, but you're not going to be allowed under the rec proposal on the ballot to possess 150 plants for your personal use. We talked about this before. You can possess up to 10 ounces in your home. You can have up to 2.5 ounces in other circumstances. And again, if you're a card holder and you're your own caregiver, you can have 12 plants, 2.5 ounces.
So that was another question I was going to ask. All of this requirements for the capitalization, that's for medicinal marijuana. What happens when it goes recreational in November? Are they just going to turn the medicinal marijuana business in Michigan into the recreational marijuana business, or is it going to be a totally separate thing?
From what everyone is talking about and what I'm reading and what I'm learning from Lara and all the, people whoever they are, if you're already pre-approved for a license through, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, then you're going to be first in line to obtain one of these new rec licenses. You see, because you're not going to see, marijuana facilities popping up on every corner, which I'm not against. But again, you got to remember, folks, that the local communities can draft ordinances. Well, they don't have to opt in to the new Facilities Licensing Act. So if your community has not opted in, you're not going to have any of these facilities or licensees within your community. When it comes to recreational licensing, same thing. The local community, can pass ordinances, zoning ordinances, all kinds of different nuisance ordinances to prevent these licensees from being placed within your community. So again, get out and vote in November. Pay attention. Register to vote. That's the key thing. Find out what the candidates stand for. Again, we're constitutional guys, so we love the Constitution. That there was a candidate who I thought was, opposed to some of my beliefs under the Constitution. Well, I'm going to advocate and work for the other candidate who is more in line with my views. So when it comes to what we talk about on the show, you might not agree with us. Some of you will agree with us. But however and wherever you fall on the political spectrum, get out and vote.
I'll be interested to see when people email in how it's done in their state, because I'd really like to know if there are all the restrictions in places like a Colorado or a California, if they've got some of the restrictions that we have here, and if they've got some of the financial setup issues that we have here in Michigan. I'd like to know what Colorado's all about, or Nevada, places like that, or even Vermont, or in Canada for that matter. If it's completely the government controlling all of it, or if they're opening it up to people with independent businesses who can be involved in the whole process. It'll be interesting to see how that all works out.
I like to segue again to University of Alberta, and there's other universities across Canada that are now implementing designated consumption areas. I mean, universities and colleges are notorious for preventing individuals from possessing their medicine and taking their medicine on campus, which I think is absolutely absurd, because if you're an incoming freshman, or it doesn't matter where you land on the spectrum of attending a university, there's a lot of non-traditional students, and you have seizures and you're in your dorm or you're in housing, but yet you're not allowed to, possess your medicine. I mean, that's just wrong, and the laws have to change, and Canada is definitely leading the way. So kudos to our brothers and sisters to the north, Craig.
Speaking of cannabis, we do have some celebrity cannabis news coming up. We've got to take a break on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, but more law and more cannabis on the way.
Big announcement, by the way, on next week's show. We're going to be talking throughout most of the show on the FDA's guidelines and regulations and where things are going in regards to vaping. There's been some serious news lately on vaping that, and so we're going to be talking about that. I get a lot of emails, a lot of questions on what type of regulations there are on vaping, what's coming down the pipeline. No pun intended. So we're going to have a whole show on vaping next week, Craig Russell. I'm looking forward to that.
That would be the Todd L. Levitt Vape Show next week.
That's right. Featuring my good friend Craig Russell from The Hustle. He's the muscle. And we have to go to break. When we come back, though, we're going to finish the last segment strong, and we're going to come back with Uncle Ted Nugent and the damn Yankees come again. We'll be right back.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show thanks you for listening to our podcast. If you have a business you think people would want to hear about, the Todd L. Levitt Law Show accepts advertising. We can promote your business to a very specialized, targeted audience. Any size commitment and any budget. Email toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com for more information about sponsoring and advertising on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show podcast.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, coming back strong with Uncle Ted Nugent. I mean, Craig, it's obvious I always wanted to be a rock and roll DJ growing up. I mean, honestly, if I could just rock it and sock it, turn it and burn it for an hour here on the Black Diamond Broadcasting stations, I'd be destroying the airwaves with some serious tunage. I'm just saying that because I pick all the music on the show, and so the listeners can get a feel for my wide range of musical taste. But, like, for instance, I have a buddy of mine, Jeremy from Kalkaska. He's a huge, huge Godsmack fan. I've seen him in concert twice, and I love Godsmack. But today I had to open up with Damn Yankees, Craig.
You do know there's a reason why they don't let you do an hour of just playing music and being Todd's Rock Block the whole time, right?
I've asked Mike and Norm that many times, and why is that?
Do I really need to tell you the answer to that?
I don't know. I think the listeners like the music I play on the shows each and every week. We definitely crush it out there, Craig. I mean, some of the listeners are listening first thing in the morning. Others are listening at different times of the day when it pops up on their podcast notifications on their phones. I mean, my music just tears it up.
Well, podcast one thing if it comes up on your phone at 4 p.m, but think about the people who are just going to church or just coming back from church. I don't know if they could handle an hour of Todd's Rock Block on their way back from church on a Sunday morning.
I think Todd's Rock Block is church. I think instead of going to church, people should just sit in their vehicles for an hour, drive around, and get jacked up on the music we play. Classic rock and roll, hair band music once in a while. Some of the, European new wave music from the 80s like Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, Howard Jones, The, Oingo Boingo. I can go on and on. I mean, I was all over the map, and then I got into some hardcore stuff like old Metallica, Black Sabbath, mosh pitting with Limp Bizkit, some hair band stuff. I can go on and on, Craig. Don't get me started on music. People don't want to hear me talk about music. They want to hear us talk about the law. By the way, I have a huge update. Huge update.
Oh, hold on. But hold on. Before you get to your huge update, I've had an epiphany. I've had a moment here. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
If you want to get out of the law thing, start your own radio station. We'll call it Todd FM, and it'll be all your favorite artists. I think it's a winner right there.
Only if you're my musical director, manager, on-air personality. That'd be great. I'd love to be on the radio. If 98.5 Rock 105 allowed me a 3-hour time slot once a week, because I know Carmi's on the weekends, and I'm just saying I'd offer up free labor to be able to have my own rock show for 3 hours.
Yeah, the only problem with that is when Carmi's on, they tell her what to play, and I don't think you'd want to be told what to play.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you'd want to play with. That's why you need to own your own station, Todd FM. That way you could play whatever you want. You could be on during the day. I'll be on in the morning. We'll schedule it all out. We'll make it work. Todd FM.
All right, it's a deal. We got a podcast. We'll just play it on podcast. Hey, by the way, the Mayans' second episode was on last week on FX. If you're a fan like I am of Sons of Anarchy, oh man, that was a great show. That together with Breaking Bad is one of my all-time favorite shows. And the Sons of Anarchies, and now the Mayans, which is a spinoff. I mean, it is certified and bona fide. That show is unbelievable. It keeps me on my feet. Also, Craig, another update. You ready for this?
Okay.
October 1st of this year in the great state of Michigan, that horrible law that came about in 2003 when Granholm was governor called the driver responsibility fee is no longer in effect, and it's retroactive. So if you or someone you know owes the state of Michigan hundreds, thousands, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars, make sure you go online through the state of Michigan to be sure that you're doing everything accurate. In fact, you don't have to do anything. The state is forgiving all those fees. There's thousands of men and women who have been unable to obtain valid driving privileges. They're now going to be able to do so because that horrific law that said if you're convicted of certain alcohol-related convictions for a period of 2 years, you had to pay $1,000 a year for 2 years. In some cases, $500 a year for 2 years. It had to do with points, driving unsuspended, no proof of insurance. I mean, people were stuck in a rut. They couldn't get out. It was like a whirlpool. They just, thousands of dollars in fines the state of Michigan started accumulating. Well, now it's all being retroactively forgiven. Make sure that you know what's going on. Get to the Secretary of State, pay a $125 reinstatement fee. In fact, I don't even think you have to pay that reinstatement fee. I'm pretty accurate on that. If you were suspended, you should be able to go to the Secretary of State as long as you're a valid driver and have the ability to drive with a valid driver's license and proof of insurance. You should be good to go.
And here's the other thing. If you have any questions about the driver responsibility fee or anything to do with your driving privileges, Todd's the man. 772-6000. 989.
Yeah, 989-772-6000.
Yep.
I also handle cases where there's financial responsibility judgments. There's a lot of individuals out there who over the years were involved in single car accidents and, hopefully, God willing, nobody got hurt in some of these cases. Others, there were victims, and our, thoughts and prayers always go out to victims of any of these situations. But if you were somebody, you were an offender bender, and you were sued, there's a financial judgment against you, and you lost your driving privileges due to that financial judgment through the state of Michigan, there is relief. I handle those cases, and that's not a solicitation. It's just, Craig, there's a lot of men and women out there who have been sued. They obviously, they maybe didn't answer the complaint. They weren't able to pay on it. They were on a payment plan. They failed to comply with the payment plan, and through the state of Michigan, they lost their driving privileges. Well, there is a way to work through the state of Michigan and the plaintiff's attorney to negotiate to get you back on the road. So if you're one of those individuals, let me know. I can help you out there as well. Craig, let's talk about celebrity cannabis. I'm jacked up right now. During the last break, I had a huge cup of coffee. I got to the end. It was like pure caffeine. I'm ready to go, bro.
Well, Jimmy Buffett is now getting into the medicinal marijuana business. He is teamed up with a company called Sutera, and the chairman of the board of Sutera is a guy by the name of William Bo Wrigley. If Wrigley sounds familiar, he is the heir to the Wrigley chewing gum factory. Jimmy Buffett's going to license a line of cannabis products dubbed Coral Reefer, taken from one of Jimmy Buffett's songs.
Coral Reefer. That's great.
Isn't that funny? Coral Reefer. He's a big believer in the therapeutic properties of medicinal marijuana. He's going to earn royalties from their Coral Reefer branded vape pens, edibles, lotions, and gel caps. And but he'll gain no stake in the venture. He's not going to have a financial thing, but he will get some money for allowing the benefits or allowing the company to use the name, and he's a part of it as well. So he was approached by other cannabis ventures, but he opted for Sutera because of their medical rather than recreational focus. It does not say where they'll be selling these products. I am assuming it'll be in places where recreational and medicinal marijuana are legal, or possibly online where there's no way to check that out. But it's coming soon to a concert venue near you, Jimmy Buffett's Coral Reefer brand medical marijuana products.
I mean, I love Jimmy Buffett. I used to go to Key West a few times over the years, and he's got Margaritaville down there. But yeah, hey, why not, right? I mean, this is America, and I love entrepreneurship. There's so much of that going on in the industry. There's more to come.
It's just the mainstreaming of medicinal marijuana and marijuana in this country. When you have big people like Jimmy Buffett and other celebrities who are getting involved, Snoop Dogg, of course, he's known for it, but other celebrities who you might not necessarily think about being in the medicinal marijuana business or in businesses that have to do with marijuana. It's just the mainstreaming of it, and it's just going to continue to grow. But hey, Todd, show's over. We got to get going.
Show is over, Craig Russell. We had a huge show. If you missed any portion of it, be sure to catch it on Podbean, SoundCloud, Libsyn, iTunes. I mean, we're podcasting and broadcasting, folks. Also, again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the millions and millions of fellow Americans all along the East Coast from the Florence devastation, and all of the first responders, military, law enforcement. I have a number of clients, Craig, and friends who are individuals who are electric line workers. They work on all the power lines, and they're on their way out there right now. So we want them to be safe and come home safe to your families, as well as all the men and women who work on the trees to remove all the trees and debris out there. Be safe out there. Keep an eye out for one another.
There we go. The show's over. We'll see you back next week on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. You going to take us out, Todd?
Craig, I'm not just a litigator. I'm an advocator. Big show next week on vaping. Damn Yankees. Come again. Uncle Ted, we love you. We're out of here.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Chad Malley-Well Drilling of Rosebush, Clark Modular Homes, your most experienced and trusted builder in Mount Pleasant, Clear Vision Windows, Siding, Roofing, and Attic Installation of Midland, Mackinac Properties and Northern Michigan Vacation Rentals, buying, selling, and renting properties in the Straits of Mackinac region since 1998, Tim's Collision Plus in Roscommon, Harrison Power Sports, Central Michigan's fastest-growing full-line Arctic Cat dealer, and Dr. Robert Townsend and Denali Healthcare for your alternative healthcare needs.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.